The changes are exciting. Whether or not this turns out to be like a really weird meta with a really broken interaction, going into this, we are all very, very excited. So that means that conceptually, we have accepted that this is going to be the best expansion of Gwent yet, right? Conceptually. The neutral cards are wild. They are wild. First of all, in this situation, we get 5 legendary cards, whereas in previous expansions like Master Mirror and Merchants of Ophir, we only got 3 legendary neutral cards. Well, we got Alzur already, so then there's 4 more coming. Of these legendary cards, Cosmo is the only one that is likely not going to see any real play at all. However, Snowdrop, Idarran, and Geralt Quen, absolutely playable legendary cards. I don't know, Idarran seems Idarran seems good enough that there's got to be a deck for this guy. There's got to be a place for this guy at 8. He's a mid-range legendary. This guy is not even taking that much from your deck. This guy's got skills. This guy's got skills, I think. Snowdrop being you couldn't make this card better if you tried. It's not just a deploy, it's a Zeal order. She draws you 2 cards, she fixes your hand. She is now a 6 strength engine still, and she's 8 provisions. Again, you can find room for things that you really want. This is why we have tutors at 8. John Natalis, Ermion, you know, this is why we have these comfort cards at 8. Snowdrop isn't a tutor, but boy, does she offer you a lot. She gets you a lot more points than playing a tutor. She likely fixes your hand so you don't need a tutor later. And she actually makes it so you can mulligan safely if you're playing something with Portal, if you're playing some of your thinning cards. And she's not a Skellige card. You know how good Bernabran is. You know how good Bernabran is. This is very competitively costed in the neutral slot. I think if you were giving other factions a choice between Bernabran and Snowdrop, you would pick Snowdrop every time. This card is extremely good. This is one of the best cards they revealed. I'll say that. I think that Snowdrop is one of the best cards. Snowdrop is the meta of this set. Easily, right? The Oniromancy of this set. The card drawing, hand fixing, excellent, excellent card in this set. But not to be outshined, Geralt Quen is a pretty good tutor, so you have that as well. Idarran is a card that one of the other cards that was revealed during the weekend that you could use a real deep dive, and I think it's probably not a bad idea for me to fire up the client here. Unbelievably strong when you just type in spawn and you realize you're already looking at all of the scenarios. Do you understand? First time you spawn a unit each turn, spawn a 1-power copy of it on Idarran's row and give it doomed. Ooh, he's a scary card. Like, spawn is a hell of a keyword. Because we know from Carinthir, when you spawn an engine, it ain't that bad. If it's 1 strength, the beast, it grows up. Hyperion Phantom, it grows up. Any of these engines. I'm just going to jump back in here because we didn't even get started. A Kadwini Revenant, of course. Drog is here, but it's really talking about the Kadwini Revenant. Every time a Revenant spawns a Revenant, now spawns an extra Revenant at 1 power. Ethna, at her maximum level, is spawning 3 Young Dryads. We're spawning 3 Officers because we're only spawning on the first time each turn. Vernon Roach will spawn the extra Commando. We will get the extra spawn from Oberon King. Saskia will spawn 2 Dryads. I mean, you can really keep looking at this. You get the extra Rowdy Dwarf from Zoltan. You get double from Ulrich. Ooh, you get double from Ulrich, of course. You always get an extra crow whenever you spawn it. You could drop this turn 1 Skellige, get an extra crow from the stratagem. You get an extra Shield Maiden from Ceres and Crate. That's pretty good. You get an extra unit from Adalia. That's pretty good because this could very well be one of your copied cards that you need. It's very good. You get an extra egg from the Bond on Selena Harpy. That's particularly strong. You always get an extra drone at all times, at monsters at all times. You would get an extra Neophyte. You would actually play Neckers. It would be a 3. 3 Neckers would touch down. And Andraga Larva, 3 Andraga Larvas touch down. Duchess Informant would get you a double up on what she copies. Boy, there's so much to talk about with this card. We're going to see this card fucking everywhere. Operator spawns double for you. You get an extra skull with Herald. You just don't stop with this card. It's so wild. I mean, Idarran might just be one of the best, right? I mean, it just might be one of the best. It's hard for me to see it being underwhelming after looking at this spread. So Selective Mutation is, it's an extremely strong tutor, but it is slow in its own way. Because instead of tutoring the card onto the field, it's drawing it into your hand. So I would say that this, along with Oniromancy, like if you thought Oniromancy was a game changer for consistency before, well, now you have draw a card with Adrenaline and fix your hand, draw 2 cards and fix your hand, tutor a Witcher, fix your hand, look at your deck in order, you can shuffle it, and then fix your deck a little bit. It goes without saying that they wanted to make sure that there wasn't going to be so much of a draw your gold scenario, because you have a good amount of the game now with a good amount of power injected into it to have the round 3 that you deserve, right? You have the round 3 that you deserve. So you draw your key card, Adrenaline. Almost every legendary card in this set has Adrenaline. You get 2 Witcher students, which you can immediately use if you care about Witchers. Northern Realms really does. And other cards tend to, like Leo and Berengar. Again, while these cards are not super great, I think that if you're coming back into the game, you missed a bunch of expansions, you want to play the new expansion, you end up making a Witcher deck because 4 factions will do that in this expansion. These are perfectly playable cards and will actually get you into a competitive power level, I think, that will allow you to kind of push past those early ranks until we get into a refined meta, which we will not have. There will not be a refined meta. It'll be just a bunch of, like I said, it's going to be craziness. It's going to be craziness. Moving into monsters, we did see a new monsters card revealed before we got to see all the locations, and that card is Wererat. The Wererat is the Triumphant Return. It is an epic card, not a legendary, as it was shown on stream, and as I exclaimed on the broadcast. It is, in fact, not a mid-range legendary. It is an epic. It is the rebirth of the Vran, but boy, does he have some new tricks. 7 provisions, 5 strength beast. At the end of your turn, consume a unit to the right. Already you're like, oh shit, now it's a Vran. Order, reset this unit's power and spawn a number of rats in this row equal to the amount of boost that it lost during the reset. And you can do this every turn, which means you can keep generating rats over and over and over again. This card single-handedly makes it much more interesting to think about a deck that would run Morvud and a deck that might also consider running Glusty, because Morvud and Glusty both care about the same thing. Lots of little rats. But if you can use the ability to create lots of little rats for Glusty and then create a bunch more rats for Chimera. Also, we're looking at Chimera next to him here. And Morvud. I think we got a deck, guys. I think we got a deck here. I think this is probably this is the build around, right? This is the keystone card. One of the keystone card for monsters right here. An absolutely fantastic or 7 provision card in a faction that has so many good ones. 7 provisions. You have a card that you have the Penitent. This is a card that tutors 7 strength cards. So first of all, the Wererat will just be spawned from the Penitent. So the Wererat's already in a pretty great position being at 7 provisions. I just like calling good cards good for all the reasons that they're good. And this one's a good one. Talk about locations last. The other cards that we got to see that were new and not locations, the Salamandra Mage was one of them. This completes the bronze units for Syndicate. 5 provisions for a 5 strength human Salamandra Mage. Tribute 4, damage 3 adjacent units by 2, and Adrenaline 5, whenever you pay a tribute, gain a coin. So this is pretty cool because you get a nice little return if you're playing something like Off the Books. Now at Off the Books, if you're playing this card And also, this adrenaline matters differently than the other adrenaline abilities, if I'm not mistaken. Because when you play the tribute of this card, it's not on the board yet, and this card won't care about his own adrenaline, right? So a little bit harder to use it, but once he's on the board, I mean, it's an engine, right? You probably want to play this earlier. But it's an engine, but it's not an engine. Obviously, it's got a really great on deploy. You're probably just going to go ahead and you're just getting value. You're just getting good value off the books. Now it's tribute 3, plus off the books, you're getting 1 coin back every time you play a tribute ability, which means that if you play something like Arena Ghoul, which has a tribute of 1 with off the books, you're not paying anything and you're gaining a coin with this guy on the board. So Arena Ghoul now becomes a 7 strength unit that profits you by 1. I don't think this card is quite as aggressive looking or competitive looking as the other 3 bronzes that we've seen. I think out of the 4 bronzes that Syndicate received, this is the worst of them. But it still is at like a higher power level than I'd say the Salamandra Assassin is. The one that they've kept having to rework over and over again. This card still seems better than that one. But only in a tribute deck. Only in a deck that's running Rayla, perhaps. Only in a deck that wants to make really good use of it. Because, you know, dropping this bad boy at 11, it's pretty good. I mean, obviously you have to factor in the coins you spend, but at the end of the round, it's the number at the end of your points total that really matters. So it's about that tempo. This is a tempo card. Big tempo card. This is a big tempo card. Syndicate has big tempo cards in this collection here. So all of the location cards, this is like a whole new cycle that wasn't revealed until yesterday. Whole cycle of cards. We have a cycle of Legendary Witchers. We have a cycle of pretty much all the bronze cards are their own cycle, right? Student, adept, teacher, adept, student, mentor, and specialist. Every faction gets that. This is an entire faction of cycles. It really does feel like every slot was considered similarly for every faction, for the most part. So when it comes to the locations, they are all very similar. These are the most samey cards out of all of the faction cycles. However, that's pretty acceptable considering how wildly different stuff like the key card witchers are, how wildly different all the mentors are and stuff like that, while still kind of accomplishing the same thing. So what the locations are giving you they're giving you immediate value, strategy expansion, and a carryover ability for the following round. So in Monster's case, I mean, in every case, what you are doing is you are playing one of your 4 bronze cards. Your adept, your student, your mentor, or your specialist. So in the case of Monsters and Salamandra, that's a bit different because they didn't get Witchers. They just received the Hybrid, the Fuka, the Succubus, and the Chimera in this case. And with Syndicate, you're going to see the same thing. It's the Lackey, the Abomination, the Mage, and the Failed Experiment that's coming out of the Salamander Hideout. So what makes these cards different for each faction is the ability that they allow you to carry over into future rounds. And I find this quite interesting because it's as if now, like the idea that you're going into the next round, but you're still kind of, you have some sort of home field advantage. You are on your territory. I do like that. Now, the Monsters ability is pretty good carryover because it improves your future draws and it immediately gives you drones to go along with your first play. Your first play could care about this top card. Your first play could care about these drones. So far it seems like there's a lot of cards that are going to care about spawning, care about insects, care about having units of the same kind around, having more of those units, especially really all the cards really care about this kind of thing. I think overall, we didn't really get to see this Ogroid thing come to pass, giving Ogroids in hand 2 armor, but I think that there's probably some other stuff in the existing set that really plays well with that. With Nilfgaard, the ability that you get to carry over is moving a unit from the opponent's graveyard to the top of their deck. This is a really interesting carryover ability, as it actually just allows you to pollute your opponent's next draw. This is also fairly abusable, even if it's round 3, because you have a lot of cards that care about the top card of the opponent's deck, such as the Viper Witcher Alchemist, who steals that card, the Viper Witcher Mentor, who takes the provision and turns it into its own power for that card as well. So very interesting ability here. Kerr Sarin, the Northern Realms, allows you to, of course, spawn and play any of the Griffin Witchers. In this case, the most interesting, the archetype that I am most interested in with this ability is the Griffin Witcher. Of course, the Griffin Witcher Adept. The Griffin Witcher Student here, however, is also an excellent choice because it's an engine that's very strong. But this does give you another Witcher Adept and allows you to immediately capitalize on making more shields and making more Griffin Witcher Adepts for your overall strategy of having either a bunch of cards with the same name on the board for Voimir, a bunch of cards with shields for Ragnar, a bunch of cards with the same power for Cohen. However you want to do it, Cohen strategically strength at 3 to make sure that all the 4s would be boosted by 1. There's a couple of ways that you could really make this work. Unfortunately, I think that the carryover ability for this card is the worst of them by far, because this particular order, to me, it doesn't seem like you care about doing this later, right? You'd rather do it earlier when you have more choices of cards in your deck to boost. Unfortunately, like Dol Dulak at least gives you a spawn of drones when you use this ability, but Kerr Sarin gives you nothing. It is just a card. I just don't really understand why you'd hold it. Outside of the fact that you have the Archgriffin, it's pretty much the only card that would really care about doing it later rather than when you play it, because the Archgriffin would go back into the deck and then later Kerr Sarin can use this order. But outside of using it on this card, I feel like the resilience on this unit, if it cost anything, it's wasted. It's mostly wasted. That being said, if you want to build the Archgriffin deck and you want to make sure that you can carry those boosts over easily, this is a card that can do that. Ultimately, I think an order of boosting in your deck, I wish it could have gone on a different card so we could have gotten a better carryover ability for the location. But it is what it is. Stygia Castle, sorry about that in advance, but also I think I'm going to get over it if I'm wrong. This time you get to spawn a Cat Witcher, on order, move 3 allied units to the other row. This is a great carryover ability because you can immediately get power out of it when you use it, because you consider all of these abilities are adding to a turn, right? Spawning the drones, moving that card to the top with Nilfgaard, here, moving those allies, you're adding power to a future turn. Kerr Sarin doesn't do that. Even if it boosts the Archgriffin, it's never going to do that. So it's always going to be the worst location in my mind. Finally, you have the Salamandra. Wait. Nope. We have over here Hern Keduk. 8 strength, resilient location here. On deploy, play the bear of your choice. And then, on order, heal adjacent units by 3. Adjacent units! My God, this is great. 2 adjacent units healed up can be a massive swing of points in one turn. You can heal this guy and Yutta, just to like throw 2 things off the top of my head. Now, look at the points you get from this, in addition to playing a card, when you compare it to even the monsters one starts to look pretty bad when you compare it to the Skellige one. But man, giving this to Skellige, Northern Realms does not get an inch of help here with theirs. And then finally we have the Salamander Hideout. This will be spawn and play your choice of Salamandra Disgusting Crew, this is a wild one to have carryover. Move poison from an ally to another unit on the battlefield. So this is giving you the option of straight up giving you the carryover ability of killing something. Just removing the unit if you are already putting a poison on it. When you move a poison, that's like applying 2 poisons in a turn. So we are really seeing the range of strength that they're giving this. Obviously, you got to work a little bit, as nothing comes down self-poisoned. Does it? I don't think anything comes down self-poisoned. The poison on an allied unit now, in a turn, poison. It's like an uninteractable morale for no points, in a way, if you want to stretch your imagination a little bit. But it's not asking very much of you, and in fact, it's giving you a pretty decent play to give you that opportunity. Out of all of these, this would be the one that I'd want to get rid of the most. If I ever saw it, I think I could live with the other stuff, but this means I'm losing a unit. Yeah, the Salamander also kills something immediately, but this means I'm probably losing a unit, and this one probably means I'm losing the game because my Skellige opponent is getting like an additional 8 points in the turn. Like most cycles in most games, some are going to look better than others, but some of them really look better than others. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. What do you guys think? What do you guys think about these? Because, yeah, they're just an empty body with an effect next round. Ultimately, that's what we got here. Fist Tech Trafficker, double value, in a way. Yeah, because you get the coins, and then you can also poison. Well, I don't know if any of them are auto-include, but I think that, like, if you're building the deck, you have the tools to realize that strategy. I don't necessarily think any of these cards are auto-include, with the exception of maybe... I mean, I don't know. Can you imagine running a scoia'tael deck and not running this engine right now? Could you imagine building a scoia'tael deck without Cat Witcher? It just seems way too good. Seems way too good. I mean, if you care about an engine in Northern Realms, Griffin Witcher is super strong. Like, these are very, very good cards for the faction, just in general. Yeah, Gaetan. Gaetan can move the castles. Yeah, Gaetan can move all cards, right? All cards. Heal for SK is a weird tag. Feels slightly worse. No, but it really is good, though. And Self Wound is absolutely supported. Because I was talking... How many times did I talk about playing... Heyme Flaminica and stuff, like with these cards, and how that would be probably good. This is probably good. I mean, it's healing adjacent units by 3. It's not healing them by maximum. I think that's probably... I think I got a little bit out of control there. But you are still getting 6 points from this. Do you run Oaken Movement? I don't think so. No. You know why you don't run Oaken Movement? I think because if you're running movement, you still care about row, and you could run it. I mean, sure. Like, you could run it. The Oak is just a really good goddamn card. It's like a removal with a big body, or it's just points. But you do have, like, and you have to, it's 13 points though, right? It's one of the most expensive units in the game. So it's not about do you run Oak and is it good? Because you run Oak and it's good. But if you choose to not run Oak, how many points do you lose in that slot? And how many provisions do you gain by perhaps just having a very, very good row for Gezras to hop into twice, right? So that might be better. It might be better for movement. Movement has a lot more control options because I think the truth is, control's kind of the name of the game. You can't just give a bunch of kind of like engines and possibilities when you have decks like Skellige that can just remove and slam points. So you have like a lot of offensive movements here, a lot of removal movement. That's what I like. About the approach here. Also, they added tempo to milling and thinning to Nilfgaard. That's generally pretty good. They gave Northern Realms a couple of interesting tools. I think Griffin Witcher Mentor looks a lot better with Snowdrop in the equation. I think that Keldar looks a lot better with Idarran in the equation. I think that Griffin Witcher Ranger is probably better than it looks. I think Griffin Witcher Ranger could actually get a lot of points. Probably if we expect the Wolf School Witchers and stuff and all these like big row multi-body cards to be very, very strong. Like Griffin Witcher versus monsters. Oh my god, that's a lot of points, right? Griffin Witchers versus scoia'tael. This card's probably getting a lot of points. So I think this card's probably just, I think it was just kind of the scattered nature of the cards. They're just good cards. They're just going to be good cards. I think this has a whole deck built around it. This is going to be just a good card. This is going to be a good card. And this probably has, if you want to run Snowdrop, one thing about the locations that's very, very, very good is that you don't need to run any of the bronzes from Way of the Witcher to have access to one of those cards. So if you really needed to fix your hand with Mentor in Northern Realms and you're running this location, you will always have that option, right? If you really needed to move an enemy to the leftmost position on its row, you always have that option if you're running the castle. Otherwise, you just play a Cat Witcher. So again, it's all about consistency in these archetypes. And I think that ultimately the locations give a layer of consistency that's probably, I mean, we've barely had enough time to analyze it, but I think that effect alone, that's what you're really paying for. That's what you're really paying for. The order is nice. It's just nicer in other cases than others. The expansion is coming tomorrow. It'll be out probably before I even wake up because thanks Central European time for being 6 hours ahead of me. And, you know, by the time it'll probably be up by noon, which is 6 a.m. by my time. And we're just going to crush this expansion. I cannot wait to start building decks. It's going to be, I am building Witcher decks. I've always been a Witcher deck builder. Always. The highest view videos I've ever released have been around Witcher decks. And now I get to do it with 4 factions instead of just Nilfgaard. But yeah, Nilfgaard's fun too, right? The artwork, again, out of this world. Fuka in particular really stands out as a good one. What do you think is the best bronze in the set? What do you think is the best card in the set? What's your favorite card in the set? I think that we're not going to get a chance to do a full set reveal, but I think we did a lot of talking about the set that I'm going to keep in this video. Let me know what you thought about the entire Way of the Rich reveals. Did you like Gwent Masters too when we did that on the weekend? I certainly thought some of the best games of competitive Gwent you'll ever see. Especially just as this game probably is going to get more strategic and competitive than ever with these complex and amazing cards from Way of the Witcher. I'll see you tomorrow for some Way of the Witcher. Thanks for watching the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Like and subscribe if you did, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.